You know how we always say Kenya never lacks drama? Well, before gossip blogs, before Twitter spaces, there was one woman who kept the country talking for decades: Virginia Edith Wambui Otieno. This was a woman who carried Mau Mau scars, fought patriarchy in court, lost elections, and later shocked the whole nation with her marriage to a man young enough to be her grandson. And trust me, the drama didn't stop even after she was laid to rest.
Hata msalaba yenyewe hakuweka jina yangu, lakini mimi nilinotice, lakini watu wengi wakunotice.
Wambui was born in 1936 into a political family. Her great-grandfather was Wayaki Wahinga, yes, the same chief who was reportedly buried alive by the British at Kibwezi. Her father, the first African police inspector. Basically, rebellion and leadership were quite familiar to her. As a teenager, she secretly swore allegiance to the Mau Mau movement, not just in the forest, but in Nairobi, where she worked in the underground, mobilizing women, smuggling weapons, spying. It cost her dearly. She was arrested, detained in Lamu, and in that dark chapter, she said she was assaulted by a British officer. By 1969, she was eyeing the Langata MP seat. Imagine that, one of the very first women to step into the parliamentary race, but Kenyans weren't ready. She lost, tried again in 1974, and lost again. Now here's the shady part. Advisors whispered that if she dumped her Luo husband, she'd have better chances at the ballot. But Wambui stood her ground. I'm not divorcing my man for votes, period. She remained active though, bouncing between Ford Kenya, NDP, and even starting her own party in 2007. She never won, but what you can't say is that Wambui gave up. Sis kept showing up ballot after ballot. Now, many Kenyans actually know her best from the 1980s when her husband lawyer Silvano Melea Otieno passed away. That's when Kenya got one of her most famous court battles. Wambui wanted him buried in Ngong on their farm. Though his Luo clan insisted, he had to go back to Nyalgunga village in Siaya. It became a whole nation debate: tradition versus modern law, widow versus clan. Courts eventually sided with the clan. Otieno was buried in Siaya.
The mausoleum in Matasi Ngong is finally opened that one understands its significance. May have been buried at his home in Nyalgunga, Nyanza, but his memory, according to Wambui, remains here, and one can see it in the love she engraved on this stone, the struggle signified by this symbolic case file, and in the promise she made more than 20 years ago, a promise she hoped to fulfill.
That case shook the country. It wasn't just about one family, it was about women's rights, culture, and where the line between personal choice and tradition really lies. In 1998, Wambui told her story in an autobiography called Mau Mau's Daughter. She wanted to remind Kenyans that women carried just as much weight in the liberation struggle, not just as cheerleaders, but as active fighters and organizers. But if you thought that was the peak of her drama, hold tight, because in 2003, Wambui, now 67 years old, tied the knot with Peter Mbugua, a 25-year-old fundi and choir master. Yup, 42 years apart, Kenya did not keep quiet. The wedding was the headline everywhere. Talk shows debated for weeks. Some called it true love, others dragged her as delusional. But Wambui, she didn't care. So, who was Peter Mbugua really? Before fame, he was a simple stonemason and part of the choir at St. Stephen's, Nairobi. Mbugua was among the fundis who helped build Wambui's current home, and slowly, their friendship grew into love. By July 2003, they were at Sharia House saying I do, and just like that, the young stonemason became a national headline. Not everyone was pleased with this union. Her own daughters straight up boycotted the ceremony. Furious, they refused to attend a wedding they saw as borderline scandalous. And that's not all. Mbugua's mother, aged 53 at the time, would not even recognize Wambui as her daughter-in-law. She refused to attend or accept any connection with the marriage. Fast forward to 2011, Wambui passes away after battling heart conditions, and just like with her first husband, her burial turned into a battle. Her children wanted her laid to rest next to SM Otieno in Siaya, but Mbugua insisted she wanted to rest in Matasia, their shared home, and that he'll honor that.
In Wambui Otieno's 6-acre farm in Upper Matasia Ngong. Right outside this door, a well-dug grave and an engraved message that says it all.
Throw the ball to the children to decide. If they feel really that Otieno was their father, they should come along.
Mbugua and family have chosen to downplay. They, however, insist that no one else's wish will carry the day but Wambui's.
I cannot comment anything about that.
This time, Mbugua won. She was buried in Ngong, but the tension between him and her older kids was crystal clear.
If there was any mistake done by any member of my community, of my family, may I say, this should be forgotten and forgotten forever.
Barely 6 months later, February 2012, the estate drama began. Mbugua walked into Milimani law courts to challenge Wambui's will. He argued she wasn't of sound mind when she wrote it, and that as her legal husband, he deserved more than just 2 plots and a car. Her daughters Gladwell and Rosaline had been given the lion's share: land, homes, cars. Mbugua wanted recognition as rightful next of kin under Kenya's succession laws. It was deja vu once again, Wambui's name back in court, sparking national conversations about family, law, and who really has rights when money and death collide.
Father, alikuwa anasema yani in Kikuyu kamundu gakaga kauma guku na ngwire gagakorwo gekirite.
Loosely translated to mean Mbugua would leave his matrimonial home with nothing but the clothes on his back.
Kama zile pesa zote tulikuwa na Wambui kwa account ni over 3 million, na hizo zote walikataa nazo.
So, what became of Peter Mbugua? Well, unlike Wambui, he didn't stay in the spotlight. In 2019, he quietly remarried. His new wife, Anne Wangari, was 35 at the time. Together, they now have 3 children.
Nimeona mkono wa Mungu, nimeona baraka za Mungu. Ningehimiza hata wazee wafanyage hivyo. Imekuwa tu mzuri kama hiyo ingine. Hata hii ni zaidi.
Na wale wa mama hawajabarikiwa ndoa yao, hata wao wabarikiwe. Nampenda sana, ni mzee mzuri.
These days, Mbugua keeps a low profile, far from the tabloids, but his name will forever be tied to one of Kenya's most legendary women. Wambui Otieno's story is not simple. She was a Mau Mau fighter, a political pioneer, a widow who challenged cultural law, and later a woman who dared to marry for love, despite ridicule. Kenya may not have given her votes, courts may not have always sided with her, but she lived boldly, shaking tables wherever she went. What some wondered over the years, was Wambui an icon of defiance or just a magnet for controversy? And did Peter Mbugua truly love her, or was it all about the money? And remember, if you'd like to advertise your hustle with us, hit us up on Telegram at BNN MarketBot. Catch you on the next one.
Ndio tulikuwa tunaishi na bibi yangu Wambui Otieno kwa ile nyumba tumejenga na yeye. Wakati tulijuana nilikuwa nakuja kumtengenezea hiyo nyumba.